Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the death of Michael Ojo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right. It's spelled O-J-O. He was a former college basketball player, I believe at Florida State University. He was like 7'1", and he had apparently has collapsed of a heart attack, according to a report on Yahoo. Um, and they tried to revive him, and was not able to be revived or resuscitated. He was brought to a hospital, but they were not able to revive him. Of course, again, I had to improvise and do a solar/sunrise chart and put the sun at the same spot as the ascendant, as the time of birth was not available. I didn't even see any natal chart for him. So he was born on January 5th, 1993. He was Sun in Capricorn and Moon in Gemini, depending on the actual true birth time. The solar sunrise chart, the time puts him at like very early Gemini, like 2 degrees Gemini, and he could have a Taurus moon if he was born very early in the day. Now, but the percentages say it's in Gemini because for most of that day the moon was in Gemini. But anyway, first thing I want to say, I want to offer my condolences and prayers to the family and friends of Michael Ojo. It's just terrible, very devastating. You hear a lot of these people are dying very young, and again, famous people passing away just shows you that nobody's impervious to any to sudden death, to debilitations. In these things, I mean, this is just really unbelievable. It just seems like there's one celebrity after another that passes away, and a lot of these people are relatively young as well, and that's what makes this even more astonishing. Now, I'm going to talk about some placements in his natal chart and transits that might have been a contributing factor to his passing, very untimely. Looking at his chart. Well, the first thing, this is nothing to do with his passing, but he does have the Sun conjunct Uranus, and perhaps that played very prominently astrologically in him being much taller than average height, being like 7'1". Uranus either conjunct the Sun or the ascendant. A person will often be taller than average, or will at least maybe give some inches to the person that they may not have had if they didn't have that aspect in their chart. And thing is, another thing that I'm looking at is that as far as natal placements go, well, the first thing is that looking at I mean, one thing that stands out is that he has, in the solar sunrise chart, he has Chiron in Leo in the 8th house of death. And of course, I mean, Chiron in Leo by itself Chiron is not just about emotional suffering, it could be about physical suffering, some of those physical debilitations. Of course, Leo does rule the heart, and it's in the 8th house of death, so this indicates, I mean, some wounds, some physical suffering that could be associated with the heart, and then being in the 8th house and possibly dying from it, which is what happened to him at this time as well. And based on the solar sunrise chart, he had transit Sun very close to the 8th house cusp. It transits Sun in Leo. The Sun does rule the heart, and also the zodiac sign Leo does rule the heart. And a lot of this may have been from like overexertion, I'm thinking, and you hear some of these athletes just passing away from, I mean, at such a young age. I mean, I understand these practices can be very grueling, and I'm wondering if that may have played some role in his passing. Now, the thing about it is too, and also you're looking at some other things to consider as far as well, there's one transit that does stand out to me, is that transit Pluto was not far from his natal Neptune at the time. And you're talking about when you're, I mean, Pluto, of course, can be associated with death. Neptune can be about general weakness, but it could also be about things that are basically befuddling, confounding, even mysterious. So this is really, it might be a little bit mysterious, at least for some time, as to why, even though it was the cause may have been a heart attack, the thing is why so young, and why did this happen at this time just during a practice. Now, another thing too, and also transit Jupiter is very close, making him believe a conjunction to his natal Neptune, and that can enlarge issues that are associated, I mean, with just general weakness, dissolving, dissipating. The Neptune being in the first house in the solar sunrise chart, the enlargement perhaps of some, it's just maybe just general dissolving, dissipation, weakness of the physical body. And even in Neptune, I mean, can also, I mean, of course, is connected with drugs as well. I hope that he wasn't involved with anything drug or chemical related at this time. But I'm sure there's gonna be more that's gonna come out as as they get more information pertaining to his death. Now, one thing that stands out to me too is that he's got the ruler of the fourth house in the solar sunrise chart. He has Aries on the cusp of the fourth house. The ruler of that house, Mars, is in the seventh house, and you're talking about perhaps this could manifest in that end of life, may result through some kind of sports competition. Now, and he has, and that ruler is Mars and Cancer. It wouldn't surprise me if there may have been some pain in the chest area at this time. Now, another thing is that as far as transits go, he has transit Mars in that fourth house of the end of life, transit Mars and Aries. So that's another indicator of the end of life possibly coming through some through some sports competition at this time. And looking at this as well, in his natal chart, he also has Pluto in the 11th house, which could indicate a death through being involved in something involved with an organization, a team, or a club. And this did happen in group involvement during a practice with his team. Now, another thing, just trying to see anything else that really stands out, and as far as anything in his natal chart and through natal placements and transits to his natal chart that might have been, attributed, may have been, as far as been a contributing factor in his death and in his passing. Now, another thing that I do, another thing that I notice. Okay, he's got the ruler of the now, not the ruler, but Leo being on the 8th house cusp by itself can sometimes manifest in a death, something Leo related, which could include the heart. Now, also the ruler of that 8th house, the Sun, makes a conjunction to his natal Uranus, so it's not surprising. This was something that came in a very untimely, very, very spontaneous, unpredictable, unusual manner. Now, as far as anything else, now he also has the Sun is also conjunct Neptune natally, so that could give sometimes some weakness to the vitality and the energy. Now, he was only like 27 when he passed away. Neptune, I mean, the Sun in Capricorn, as far as like debilitations, health-related matters that would be connected with the Sun in Capricorn, it could be something with the bones, the knees, the joints, the hamstrings. If you have Neptune conjuncted, that could also, I mean, that could be some weaknesses in connection with that. You're talking about Neptune is about dissolving and dissipation, and could be like deterioration, or maybe he was having some other issues as well at this time that I just described. Now he had also had reportedly had gotten he had contracted the coronavirus, but he had it was stated that he had gotten through it and he was and it ended and he didn't have it, that he had gotten over it and he didn't have the coronavirus anymore. But what's interesting though is that he does have transit Pluto very close to his natal Neptune, which could be a death through a disease, and I'm hoping that, but I don't believe he still had the coronavirus. If it was reported that he did not have it anymore, that it had left his system. But anyways, really not much more could really add. I'm going to go back to the Chiron in Leo again in the 8th house. I don't remember if I said it previously or not, but in case I didn't, it's also at a critical degree at 22 degrees based on the solar sunrise time and in the 8th house of death. And just trying to see if there's anything else that is standing out as far as anything that really well, one other thing that I do notice, and this is really nothing where, I mean, he's got the sun is square Jupiter, and the fact that you have the sun square Jupiter, that could give I wonder if, I mean, you could argue, I mean, I see it as sometimes that this could manifest in some sports related issue as far as something physical. Now Jupiter also is associated with the liver and the hips. Maybe he's had some injuries associated with those parts of the body, and he also has that Mars in Cancer I was telling you about before. It opposes his sun. So that is another indicator as far as issues to an indicator as far as issues to the physical body. Mars in astrology is associated with the head, the skull, the face, but Mars in Cancer, of course, could be associated with injuries or issues with the chest. Now, if he did die reportedly of a heart attack, he might have had some pains in his chest at this time. Now, another thing too is I've talked about in previous videos, something that is that I'm noticing. He does have a cardinal T-square configuration, and that involves the opposition between the Sun in Capricorn and the Mars in Cancer. It's also including the conjunction of the Sun to Uranus and Neptune as well, and that's making an opposition to his natal Mars in Cancer, and it's all squared by Jupiter in Libra, which is at 13 degrees, which is a critical degree in astrology. And as I've talked about in previous videos, when you have a transit from a planet that opposes that focal point in a T-square configuration in your chart, often significant events can transpire and occur. Now, at this time, he has transit Chiron. Transit Chiron in Aries is making a loose opposition to that Jupiter, but also Mars in transit Mars in Aries is also making a loose opposition to the natal Jupiter as well. And Chiron, of course, is not just about emotional wounds and suffering. It could be about physical ones as well. And being in Aries, I mean, Aries can be connected with sports and competition. So, I mean, you pretty much can do the math as far as that goes. And you're talking about these elements in his cardinal T-square configuration. The Sun, of course, is about life in astrology. Uranus is unusual, unpredictable events. Neptune can be about weakness and dissolving, dissipation, and in this case, perhaps of that life. He has Mars in Cancer, which can be about physical pain and hurt. And again, not to be redundant, it wouldn't surprise me if he had some kind of pain in his chest at the time. And again, Mars is also about could be about competition in sports. And he also, in the solar sunrise chart, he has Mars conjunct the 7th house cusp, because right there that could be an indicator of some kind of sports competition. And being in Cancer, perhaps he showed very strong unconditional and unequivocal love for. And Jupiter being involved in this cardinal T-square configuration, Jupiter is a planet that can be associated with sports as well, and in the solar sunrise chart does fall in the 9th house in his chart, which of course, when you have Jupiter in the 9th house, and if you're an athlete, I mean, this could be very fortuitous for athletic prowess and success in sports. There's really not much more had to add as far as this goes. Again, it's just a terrible thing, very devastating. You have something traumatic happen to somebody so young, and I mean, in this case, somebody that was a very popular, I believe, college basketball player, and for his life to just end the way it is. And also another thing I want to add, and I know it's not a conjunction by transit, but transit Pluto right now is at like 22, 23 degrees. His sun in Capricorn is at 14 degrees. Now, I know that's not a conjunction by transit, but at the same time, as I've said in previous videos, just because something is not in terms of what astrologers use in terms of the permitted orb for aspects, we can't say, I don't think 100% irrebuttably, that it's not feeling some kind of vibration. And I would not be surprised. This may have had a little, this probably didn't help the fact that transit Pluto was near his, was not far from his sun at the time of his passing. And it does fall in, the transit does fall in the 1st house of vitality, the physical body, in the solar sunrise chart. So, anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.